Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. My name's Thomas,
I'm Julie.
and we are wrapping up our series, 15 Lessons After 15 Years of Marriage. And this is lesson 15, and it's called Invest in Your Marriage. And just to clarify, like I just said, we're wrapping up this series. We are not wrapping up the podcast. The podcast is not ending after this. So stay tuned again for next week. We're going to still have more episodes coming out. It's just not going to be in the series anymore.
Yeah, next week actually will be really fun because we'll do honorable mentions of those that didn't fit into the 15 lessons, kind of like rapid fire of all the lessons we've learned in 15 years, but not just these 15 that we've been going through on a full podcast.
Yeah, some cutting room floor type of stuff that couldn't make a full episode out of because there just wasn't enough content around it, but stuff that's still important nonetheless.
Yeah, but to kind of go to this lesson, invest in your marriage. This came out of, so obviously we've been married for 15 years and over 15 years now. And about 7.5 years, so halfway through, our marriage, we thought it was great. We didn't have kids those first long years, 7+ years of just us. So we could invest in our marriage, meaning if I didn't feel like cooking dinner that night.
We had the time, we had the energy, and we had the money at that time.
So we thought.
Maybe not the money, but...
Because if I didn't want to cook dinner, then we would just go out to dinner. And it felt like a date, although it was just a cop-out for not cooking at home and things like that. So we were having lots of fun and lots of time to talk. And like I said, whether we knew it or not, we were intentionally investing in our marriage. But we got pregnant and we were excited, but surprised that, we insert kids into our marriage and it was twins at that. So we had 2 boys at
Nothing like doubling your family overnight.
Yeah, total surprise, but exciting.
We thought we were going to go from from no kids to like a 2-on-1, type of defense.
Right.
And instantly it became a 2-on-2.
Wow.
And so...
So we had the boys, and we both were still working full time. So when they got home out of the NICU and were old enough and well enough to go to daycare, they were in full-time daycare. Like I said, Thomas and I were working full-time. We would barely get home. That's why even the not wanting to cook at home, it was kind of like pick up dinner because now we got to do baths and get the kids to bed. Our relationship quickly shifted when we inserted kids from, the soulmates and this fun relationship to really shifting to just roommates. We were just trying to survive life, and our communication was purely just about scheduling and diaper changes and this and that, and we stopped going to that deeper level of intimacy physically and just, communication wise. We saw a big shift in our marriage when we had kids.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it definitely changed to what's it going to take to get through today type of communication. We were lucky if we talked about tomorrow at that point, if we were awake long enough to talk about tomorrow. But yeah, it was just a lot of that, just surface level communication to just get through that tough time. And when I say tough time, I just mean, busy, hectic time. Like I said, we doubled our family overnight. And so doing that creates a set of challenges that you've never been introduced to before. So we were in survival mode.
Yeah. And then to continue with our story, when the boys were young toddlers, we then kind of started shifting into then financial struggles. So all the eating out that we were doing caught up to us. And I remember a moment in our marriage, I guess the babies were sleeping or something. Because I remember it was just the 2 of us in our living room. And Thomas brought a heavy conversation to me about where we were financially. And it seriously hit me like a ton of bricks. there was not a physical affair in our marriage or anything like that. It was purely just about our finances situation. But because we had already started drifting apart from our, deep communication, I felt like my emotions were like, when you brought it to me, it was like you had cheated on me, because I just emotionally, I was like, why didn't you tell me? Why did you feel like you needed to keep that from me? Why are you telling me now when it's like really, really, really bad? When I could have helped change that or talk to you about that. So I just remember that day bringing that up, as that was probably the wake up call in our marriage, a huge turning point. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, talking about it again doesn't make me feel any better now than it did the first time around. But it was definitely a turning point in our marriage. I wouldn't say that it was a rock bottom point in our marriage, because I think that for us, we decided in the very beginning that, divorce just wasn't an option. We talked about that in our lesson 7, don't say the D word. So we knew that wasn't an option. I feel like that would have been more of a rock bottom in our relationship if we had gotten to that point where we were discussing that. And we weren't there in this situation. It was just all right, well, we just had twins. We now have 4 mouths to provide for, and we have to get to work and figure this out type of a situation.
That's why I used the words like it was a wake up call. Yeah. I think that was a turning point financially. Like, even so, that was about 7.5 years into our marriage. So now another 7.5 years have already gone by, and we're in a fully financially secure place. Right. Like a lot has changed there with money, but a lot of things have changed in our marriage as far as communication and our intimacy and everything. And I just equate it back to that day that was a wake-up call, and then we chose to have a turning point, and we decided to pivot. And even though we didn't have money, we decided then to invest in our marriage. It was about money. The conversation was about money, but it was just a huge turning point of us communicating again.
Right.
About our feelings and fears or securities or insecurities and all of the above. And so we started pursuing each other daily, weekly, monthly. We started these new rhythms in our life. And so now I can say without a doubt, after now 15 years of marriage, I would ask if you agree, but you said this last week that it is a great marriage. So I would say our marriage is better now than it ever has been. And it's better than it started, even without the kids in the beginning when we thought it was great. It's even better now. Each day truly is better than the day before. And I think that's because we've been intentional about investing in our marriage.
And I don't want to paint this as a picture through like rose-colored glasses or anything. Our marriage isn't perfect. We still have fights. We still have arguments and things like that. And those days are rough. But from a growth perspective, our marriage does grow more, even with those hard days, than the days before. So what you're saying about each day being better, yes, I would say that, even though some days are harder than the day before. I think that the hard days still make us better. So I just wanted to clarify around that and not paint a picture like, oh, we're this perfect couple over here, no couple's perfect, right?
Yeah, like better than everybody else, but we wanted to share our rhythms to say where we've come from and where we are now. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want for other couples and other marriages. If you choose to, like we did, invest in your marriage. So we're just going to go through some rhythms that we've established to keep it getting better and keep our marriage strong. And so those rhythms are stuff we do daily, and then weekly, monthly, quarterly, and even annually. Mm-hmm. So let's kick it off.
Yeah, so daily, we just prioritize time with each other.
Yeah.
We had a whole episode in our 15 lessons called Prioritizing Your Spouse, and that was lesson 4. And so, in case you guys think I've just memorized all these, I've got it written on a whiteboard right in front of me, so I'm just playing it cool. But
Just helping you find it easy, like the table of contents.
yeah. So if you want to go back and listen to those, you can find them when you subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. But we did a whole episode on prioritizing your spouse, and so that's one of the things that we do daily. We take time to we make sure to spend time with each other, quality time with each other. Sometimes that's just in the form of going on a walk after we're done with work. Sometimes that's with the kids. Sometimes we do that. Fortunately, we have the capability to both be working from home, so sometimes we can go for a walk around lunchtime and the kids aren't with us, but most of the time the kids are, and we'll just push our daughter and our 2-year-old daughter in the stroller, and she usually stays relatively quiet. And we send the boys off kicking a soccer ball ahead or something like that, so that we can kind of have that one-on-one time together. And this is something that if you can figure this out early on, you'll establish it as a habit and stick to it and then protect it. That's the key, is protecting it. Now, of course, there's always going to be those days where some things fall through and you don't get to it. That happens, but make sure that you always circle back when you kind of feel that little tweak in your relationship, like, wait, what's wrong? Maybe it's just as simple as this: you missed your walk 2 or 3 days in a row, you missed your quality time 2 or 3 days in a row, and get back to that. If you go and work out, you start feeling better. And this is same thing in your relationship. If you work on your relationship, it starts to feel better.
Yeah, I mean, like, working out is sometimes hard to get to the gym or start your workout wherever you do that. But you're right. You do feel better afterwards, or you can even like miss it. If you do miss it, you didn't get to do it that day, then, or longer period of time, you kind of start craving it. So we're just talking about healthy relationship routines. Daily actually could be the hardest one to come up with. But I would say it's the most important one, because you're with this person every day. And so, what is that for you? You might live somewhere that you can't take that walk outside together and have quality time. So start your day having coffee together, or whatever. You define what it is, and then try to do that daily and establish that habit. That's just going to then create that healthy relationship routine.
And we're going to talk about this in a little bit. But we understand that not every married couple has the same work schedule as we do. Not every married couple does get the opportunity to work from home. Some of you are probably working on opposite schedules, and one of you's awake and one of you's asleep. So we're going to circle back to that later. But this is something in daily where you could bring the 5 love languages back in again. We talk about that book a lot. Make sure you check it out if you haven't. But if you're not seeing each other frequently because of your work schedules, make sure that you're still showing your spouse that you're thinking about them on those times where you're not seeing them, because you can do that through the love languages, words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and quality time. There it is. And quality time, obviously, in a scenario like that, is going to be the harder one, but make sure that when you have the time, you make it quality time. And find little ways to show all of the other ones that's something you can do daily to make sure that you're still having that connection, even if you're apart, even if you have something like opposite work schedules and things like that.
So let's move on to weekly. Weekly, we've established in our marriage to have weekly date nights or date days. Like Thomas said, we are working from home right now. And so it's a little easier for us to spend that time together on a weekly basis, but we still have to figure it out. Like, we still have to cultivate it and put it on the calendar. So think outside the box to be able to do this weekly. It doesn't have to be at night. Although if you have kids, it is, there is still time in the evening to do stuff when they go to bed. But have lunch together. So even if you're working out of the home, meet for lunch or something.
Or FaceTime each other during lunch so that you can, if you're on opposite ends of town and you don't have the time, FaceTime each other while you both eat lunch if you can time it up correctly. And then you can still have that virtual meal together.
Yeah. So what we're doing to help other couples and ourselves, actually, so we're not overthinking this, every week, we are coming up with a full list of ideas to do on a weekly basis, even at home. So it doesn't have to be, you have to go out, you have to spend money. Like I said, we started this episode by sharing our story, and we were in financial hardship, and we've had to come out of that, even with doing weekly date nights or date days. And so we're going to come up with that list and share that with you guys instead of going through it all here on the podcast. But the point is establish that weekly rhythm. So is that Friday night for you? I don't know, whatever, day or night that you can establish. But then if you, like Thomas was saying, opposite work schedules or whatever, if you look at your calendar and go, oh, Friday night's not going to work this week, then just move that to Saturday or a Monday lunch or whatever, so you still get that weekly rhythm of that quality time and investing in your marriage.
Yeah, reschedule if you have to, but don't cancel.
Yeah.
Next is monthly. Monthly, we try to have an out-of-the-house date with no kids. We briefly talked about this in a previous episode that, when you have infants, you can probably kind of skirt that no kids rule a little bit and save a little bit on a babysitter that way, save a little bit of money on a babysitter that way. But we really encourage you to cultivate that time and have at least one date per month out of the house with no kids. And that's just really important to have that one-on-one, uninterrupted, undistracted time with each other.
Yeah, and so this one's you're going to probably spend a little bit more money on. Like I said, we're coming up with a list of weekly dates that you could do at home, playing a game together, like a board game or cards or, making dinner yourselves, this and that. But monthly, really, that's only 12 dates a year. So from a financial perspective, just budget for 12 nice dinners or activities and events and a sitter if you have kids. Like, budget for that, because in reality, just 12 dates, you were dating a lot more before your marriage. And now we see couples and even ourselves, we've talked about this, it's hard to go out on a monthly date. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's actually easier for us now when we went to the weekly dates, because then we can look at, out of the weekly dates, which one of these, which weekend or night of the week are we going to go out and invest more financially into our marriage. And it's just a different vibe, a different, quality of time together to have those experiences. And so definitely once a month. And I would even side note, I think we've said this before, but this is, to me and to our relationship, this is different than going out with another couple.
Right.
So if you want to go out with another couple, double dates, group outings, that's super great, super fun. Have those relationships. But then on top of that, investing in your marriage, it should be that one-on-one date with your spouse. In addition to those extra activities.
Yeah.
Don't we're in December now. So, we went to a Christmas party. Yay. Like, did you add, to that before and after to make it a date, or do you need to find another date on the calendar? That's special date night.
Yeah. Protect that time. And, to circle back quickly on the financial part of that, I think, and you just touched on this as well, if you're going to go on a double date to cultivate that relationship and you're going to spend most of your date night budget on that, that's okay. If you need to keep it in the same night under the same babysitter, after you go out on that double date, make sure you go grab ice cream by yourself with just your spouse and spend an extra $10 on ice cream and an extra 30 minutes out to have that one-on-one date. They can be tacked into the same night to save a little bit of money if you need to do that, but make sure you protect that quality one-on-one time with your spouse.
Yeah, good. And we'll give you ideas on those events or those date nights soon as well. But then next is quarterly. So I think this can get overlooked. So cool, yeah, we could do monthly or weekly, but quarterly, what are your rhythms? Again, if you break that down in a calendar year, there's 4 quarters. So 4 times a year, we suggest doing an overnight date.
Mm-hmm.
Go away somewhere with your spouse. And you don't have to overthink that. You can get a sitter, at your house, or family if you can take a road trip. We've done that before. My mom lives out of state from us, and we've flown to her kind of as like a family vacation, but then left the kids with grandma and grandpa, and we went to a hotel and explored the city. And so just something like an overnight, or if the kids are doing sleepovers or something, it can be local, but we suggest even getting out of the home for that overnight, because there's sometimes that our kids do sleep over somewhere, at my sister's house or something, play with cousins, and we have a great date night out and we'll come home. But then the next morning, say it's Saturday morning, we'll just start on chores or this or that, or we have to go pick up the kids, and you're quickly like back into that routine of life. Whereas when we found that we go away for the night at the beach, or just a new city or a local hotel, like it's just that extra full 24 hours of a date that you can enjoy each other and even wake up together and continue that the next day before you get back to the grime of life.
Yeah, I think that this really takes some discipline, to find some financial discipline, to be able to make sure you can pay for an overnight stay somewhere every quarter, because even hotels really aren't that cheap, but I think it can be done, and I think I hear what you're saying about the making sure that you try not to just come back to your house and have your overnight home. But if you truly are strapped a little more financially, I think you could do that. Try and maybe split that in half. Maybe do 2 overnights a year away and do 2 at home. But really, still, the key theme in this whole episode is protection. Protect that time. And so, like Julie said, if you go back to your house on a Friday evening to have that overnight while your kids are staying somewhere else, and you wake up Saturday morning and you start doing chores, you've lost the magic of your date. If you decide that you're going to wake up and watch a movie first thing in the morning, like do something different that would break your normal routine, make it a point to plan that out and say, we are not going to do this like we would normally do if the kids were gone. We are going to leave the house a little messy if we need to, and we're going to focus on us. And maybe that means you go out to breakfast the next morning as soon as you wake up. PJs, no makeup, just go. I often struggle with not putting on my makeup before I leave. So
that's freeing for when I can go out without makeup. But yeah, my point is calendar it and then be intentional about it, because lots of marriages have died because couples believe the myth that they needed a fresh start with somebody new, when what they really needed was a fresh start with each other. And so these quarterly rhythms or a night away, even when things aren't necessarily bad, it's just that new fresh start of cultivating that relationship. But you have to invest in your marriage for that.
Yeah. So last one is annually. This one's pretty simple. Plan an annual family vacation. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, because I think maybe this is the easiest one. Or I said like daily is harder. But again, intentionality can come in a family vacation. And so with or without kids, but this one, yes, it's a marriage podcast and we're talking about just you and your spouse, but that family vacation where the kids get to come and you spend a week somewhere, your kids are watching you and your spouse interacting. And so many times, like me growing up, we went on vacations just to go on vacations, and it was so stressful packing and like going, and my parents would fight as we were like walking out the door. And it's like, why are we doing this? Why are we spending all the money and time and energy just for a hectic experience? So that was the point of like saying it's the easiest to put on the calendar, but the intentionality is often what's missed on family vacations. That you're still investing in your marriage and your family, by the experiences that you're creating during that vacation and leading up to it.
Yeah, so let's talk about some excuses. We've grown to hear a lot of excuses from people about why these won't often work, and so we're going to rapid fire through these. We've got 3 excuses here that we often hear. Number 1 is the kids won't allow for it to happen. Well, that's an easy excuse, but solution: hire a sitter, call on your village. We all know it takes a village to raise a kid, and if you have 3 kids, it apparently takes 3 villages. And so, call on your village, and or just plain sacrifice a few hours of sleep each month to make that quality time. And we all know sleep is scarce as well, but make sure you do what you need to do to get around that excuse. Don't let that be an excuse in your marriage.
Yeah, another excuse we've heard is, Thomas mentioned it earlier, if your work schedules are completely opposite, and definitely that creates more challenges. You just have to go back to calendaring it out and trying to find where you can be flexible. But also an idea is maybe just speak to your boss, see if you can get one day off together. And that's where we've been saying, like, it doesn't have to be a night. Where can you be off together where the kids are covered, maybe in school or something, even if that's once a month. Maybe your boss will be flexible with that if you just ask.
And excuse number 3, you can't afford date nights. That, I would say, is probably just more of an excuse of laziness than anything else. And I'm just going to be blunt about that because, as we've already said, it doesn't have to be about spending money. You can do a lot of free things. Google it. I mean, we're going to create something for you guys as well, but it's not that hard to find out some things you can do for free. Ride your bikes around town, go for a hike, pack a picnic lunch for the park, make a nice dinner at home, and play a board game or cards. Plenty of simple things that you can do just in that quick couple of sentences to make sure that you can still have that date night even if money's tight.
Yeah, like we found out halfway through our relationship, your marriage will be as healthy as the level of your investment. So think of it this way. The wedding is simply the wrapping paper, and then the marriage is the gift inside. You wouldn't spend more time and effort on the wrapping paper than the actual gift. And if you think back at your wedding, I mean, how much did you invest in your wedding, like time and money into your wedding day, or even your honeymoon, into that experience, or even one-time events, like those family vacations. But we don't often invest in the lifelong commitments that we make. And so our wedding day is just one day. Our marriage, hopefully, is for the rest of our lives. And so just invest in your marriage. Don't forget about that just because the wedding day's over.
Yeah, another way to say it is a marriage is like a house. When a light bulb goes out, you're not going to just get a new house. You're going to change the light bulb. In that way, similarly, marriages oftentimes need ongoing maintenance, but sometimes they also need drastic improvements.
Right. So, whether you just want to take your marriage to the next level, or if you feel like your marriage needs to be revived, reach out to us. We're always inviting you in because we're certified marriage coaches, and we help couples go from being overwhelmed, like we were halfway through, to being secure in their marriage. And we'd love to walk alongside with you and your spouse, whenever you choose to invest in your marriage.
Yeah, you can set up a discovery call with us, and we can start working through what that looks like. And working with us on our calls, we use exercises that focus on topics like communication, conflict resolution, financial management, sex and intimacy, spiritual beliefs, marriage expectations, roles and responsibilities. And there's even topics on parenting that we go over if that's applicable to your family. And then, various other things that come up as well.
So 2 simple ways that you can invest in your marriage with us, with Thomas and Julie, is 1, sign up for our email list on our website, marriagepuzzle.com. If you sign up for our email list, we will send you the date night template that we've been referencing, that we're coming up with, we're excited about. even to get out before the end of the year so you can set up your 2022 calendars. This template will, just be a blank slate for you to put in weekly, monthly, and quarterly date structures so that you can never miss that. But we'll also include some of our list of ideas that we're coming up with so you can fill in those dates. And when you have a plan, then, you're more applicable to stick to it. And then you'll see lots of change in your marriage when you invest in that time. And then also check out the show notes from this episode for the link to the discovery call if you'd like to talk to us over Zoom.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. And we hope you've enjoyed this series that we've been in, 15 Lessons After 15 Years, kind of writing our journey through our marriage with us. It's been a lot of fun for us to produce for you. So we hope you've enjoyed it as well. And we hope you've gained a lot from it. Remember that new episodes release every week on Mondays. This podcast is going to continue after this series. Next week, we're doing honorable mentions, so come back and check that out. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Marriage Puzzle. Like Julie said, marriagepuzzle.com for news, to see news on our website and sign up for our email newsletter and receive that date night template. If this is your first time listening to us, make sure you subscribe to our channel on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, and then please leave us a rating as well. That helps us to reach even more people. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
See you next week.